Hello guys, and welcome to this series. Today I would like to start a new series which is going to be with Vue.js. Vue.js is very interesting technology to learn, and it's very popular right now among front-end developers. So basically what we're going to do is we are going to build a web application if you've done the Node.js tutorials similar to this one, but then with Vue.js, and we're going to connect it to a Node.js backend. So something so the people who done the previous tutorials will already know much more about Node.js, so we're going to combine those two in one. So let's get started with Vue.js. So what is Vue.js? Vue.js is a progressive framework for building user interfaces. It's one of the libraries I absolutely love working with. Like, you will see why. I'm not going to explain too many things without, when it's abstract, but it's amazing. They have an amazing community, and I think it's very easy to get started with. Like, if you are new to JavaScript development and front-end libraries and you're not sure with which one to start, I think Vue is a very good one to learn. So to start understanding the basis and stuff, we will build a little Vue app first, where we're just going to start, where I just will explain very briefly what you can do with Vue.js, right? So a little bit of basic stuff, and then we're going to dive into building the real application. So let's get started. But before we get started, we have to install some little extensions for our Visual Studio Code. So the first extension I would like to install is called Viter. So you can type in Viter here. You will find it over here. So basically hit install here, and what is Viter gonna do? So Viter is gonna do some syntax highlighting of our Vue.js components. You're gonna find some snippets there. You're gonna be able to format your code better. So this is a very interesting extension when you start doing Vue.js development, you will see. And then the next extension that you can install is Prettier. The code formatter. It's not necessarily, obligated, or, I would just recommend you do it. But it's not a necessity. But Viter, I would really strongly recommend to install, because of the syntax highlighting. It's amazing. You will see it. So with no further ado, if these two are installed, let's get started. So the first thing you can do is you can create a new folder somewhere where you're basically going to add your Vue.js project. So I made a folder here, Vue.js project, and in this you can start configuring your environment. So the first thing you're going to need is Node.js. Node.js is basically if you don't have it already, if you have it already, it's fine. You'll have to install it. I recommend you to install the LTS version, long-term support version. So just click it here, you download it, and you install this MSI that's being downloaded, and you can get started. Because the way we're going to build it, we're going to need a Node server to build our Vue.js app. So once Node.js has been installed for you, or if it's already installed, you can easily check this by doing node-version-v, and then you have the version. npm you need as well, so you check the version of npm. These are my versions right now at this time. So this is fine. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to start by installing the Vue CLI. So we're going to do npm install -g. -g stands for globally, so you want to be able to access this everywhere. And then you hit Vue/CLI like this. So, and then you just hit enter. And this is going to install the entire Vue CLI. I normally have installed it already, but I'm just going to reinstall it now. So it will probably override it normally. And then the next thing, once this is installed, we can start creating our project. So make sure you have Node, make sure you have npm, and if this is done, you can install the Vue CLI. And then we can just start building our project. Okay, here we are. And then the next thing we can do is we can basically, in our folder, create a new project. How do you create a new project? It's super easy. You just type in Vue, and then you say create, and then you say my first Vue project. You can call it anything you want, like this is just the name, and then you hit enter. And now normally it's gonna ask you some questions. Do you want the default? Do you want Vue 3, the preview? Or do you want to manually select your features? For now, I think we can all just hit default. This gives us ESLint and stuff like this, so that's just fine right now. So right now for this little application, we will just hit default. And this is going to initialize everything and install all the plugins and create everything that we need. All right, and this is almost done, and this is almost ready. Takes a while, guys. Okay. All right, so you see it has been successfully created, my project. So that means that I have a folder now, and in this folder I can find my project. So if I would go to my folder physically, I will find that I have a new project there that was created, and here it is, and that's where my project is. So I would like to open this with Visual Studio Code now. So I'm gonna open it with Visual Studio Code. I'm gonna navigate to this path, and I'm just gonna open this folder. Here we go. And now that this folder has been opened, my first Vue project is opened, we can get started on building. So the first thing we would like to do is, now that everything has been installed, and we can look at the structure of what was created. The first thing that has been created is a public folder. What is in there? There's an index.html. See this as the basic HTML page of your application, right? Of your single page application. The next thing is you have some assets. So here you have some assets. This is a logo, okay? And then we have a component, which has like some hello world for a guide of recipes, everything. This is just basically HTML, right? And then we have the app itself, which loads the component, and which has also some extra information. If this looks crazy right now, I understand. That's normal. If you're new to it, this is normal. So let's just take a look, and we're just gonna fire up our application by typing npm run serve. So basically now Vue will start the development server. Let's give it a little bit, because this will basically build the application and then give us a workable service the application basically. Here we are. So now we can serve to our local host 8080. You see, this is what it says to me. This is where I can find my application. So let's just go ahead and do this. We're just gonna go from Vue.js here to localhost 8080, and we're gonna hit enter. And this is our application. So basically what we see here, this is our application. That is exactly this. So let's take a look if this makes sense. So we go here to our application here. And what do we see? We see an image, which makes sense. That's an image. And then we have a component here. Okay, seems legit. So how Vue.js works is it basically has a template where all the HTML is built in. Then it has a script where you can basically find all the logic, all your JavaScript. And then it has a style tag, which basically where you basically will write all your CSS. So basically when you write a Vue component, this has usually one of those things or all of them, right? Let's say, for instance, you want to write a component, then you're going to put your HTML in here. You're going to modify and manipulate your HTML in here and keep your data and fetch stuff from the queries. This is where your logic comes, and this is where your styling comes. So there's a threefold way, right? So now, let's say, for instance, we get rid of this hello world component. So you can just get rid of it. What you will see now is that all is left is an image. It also will complain we have ESLint on. It basically says that the component has been registered but not used. So it means we have to also remove it from here and also remove it from here. Okay. Okay. So all we have now is this logo. And that's fine. We're okay with this. So basically what we have is a logo and then something. So if I'm typing something here, let's say I'm typing hello, this is a test. Okay, and let's just take a look if this appears in the application. Hello, this is a test. Perfect. So, okay, we have basically this piece of information here. We can adapt this. Fine. The next thing you want to do is you want to start binding data. So one thing that Vue.js allows you to do, and if people worked with jQuery before, they will know it maybe too, you want to manipulate your DOM tree. So basically your DOM tree, this means your little elements you have over here. So let's say, for instance, we have an input field. So we can add an input field with type of text. And we also have a button. Okay, button. Click the button. Okay. Click the button. Okay, that's fine. So basically the first thing I want to know is I want this text to be tracked by my application. So if we follow Vue.js methodics, we can write a data function here. Here we go. And what is the data function gonna do? The data function is basically gonna register this data in your application, and you can bind this data to your HTML. I know this sounds maybe a little bit abstract, but I'm just gonna show you what it means. So let's say input data, and then we define it as a null. So input data has now no value, but we tell our little app over here, that we have input data. And the next thing we want to do, we want to bind this data to our application, to our GUI, because right now, if I'm going to look here, this is going to be empty, and this is not doing anything. Nothing is happening. This is not what we wanted. So what can we do to bind this data? Basically, you can use vmodel and then say input data. Okay. So you just put here vmodel input data, and then this data will be linked. So this means that if I will type something here, I will now have registered this data in my application. And you're like, okay, how do I know this for sure? I mean, all we see is you type. I understand. So what we're going to use now is called string interpolation. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to write two of those. And this way, and this is kind of similar if you've done AJS in my previous tutorial to this, right? You're writing some JavaScript inside your HTML. So this is also going to be some JavaScript inside your template. And here you're going to write input data. Here we go. Okay, so now what we've done is we connected input data through vmodel here, and then here we say this p element contains the input data. So there should be now no p element. So I'm going to refresh. There's no p element. Okay. So let's say I type something here. There's no paragraph, so I type something here. Hello, test, and here we go. It's directly binded to this data. That's insane, right? Hello, this is awesome. So here you go. Basically, you can type anything and it's immediately binded because this is a two-way binding. So that's really cool. And this is one of the things you can do with Vue.js. You can basically use binding of your data and then use it in your templates. Another interesting thing you can do with Vue.js is execute methods. So you can manipulate your tree. So let's say I would like to click on this button here. Right? Click the button. And whatever my input data is at the time, I would like this to be added to some kind of list. Okay, let's try that. So the first thing we want to do in this case is we want to wire up a list. So let's just say an unordered list, a very basic unordered list, and then like one list item. And then we basically say we want to add, for instance, let's say the input data was hello, and then the next input data was Vue. Here we go. So the first two guys here were hello Vue, right? So what does that look like on our thing? Hello and Vue. Okay, that looks great. So we have basically two little items here. That should work fine. So when we click the button, we would like to have the data that is in here that we already were able to wire together to basically be added to this list. Okay, so Vue.js makes this insanely easy. So when you want to add a string to a list in programming, what do you usually do? You're going to put it in an array, for instance. So we are going to create an input data array. Here we go. And we can define this with this square brackets here. And then what we basically can do is we can create a method. And the options API in Vue.js foresees different options. So basically data is an option, components is an option, and there's another option which is called methods. And in methods you can declare a method. So basically what you could declare here is on add input data to list. It's a pretty long name, I know, but it's very clear what it says. And we're going to basically say this method adds input data to our list. Okay. So this method would have to add this data that we can fill in here, and we can fetch it. I proved it to you. When I type something here, it's actually showing up. So what I want is when I click this button, it's added to this array. So what I could do is I could just say this, you have to refer to the data in your JavaScript methods through this. So this knows the Vue application basically. Or the Vue component, I'm sorry. So it knows the Vue component. Input data array dot push, and then we want to push the current input data. So we say this dot input data. Okay. So that's what we're doing right now. The one line of code that basically adds input data to our list, the way we do it in JavaScript. So then I can just define a function here, add click. Here we go, click. So that's an event. Basically, I define an event and I say on add input data to list. So when we're going to do this, when I'm going to hit this button, I want to execute this code, this little method, and this should add it to my list. Okay. Let's give it a try. Let's try the add test. Okay, so now my list should be full of information, but I cannot access it. So in JavaScript, there's an easy way to do this. You can just say console.log, the list is, and then comma, this.input data array. Okay. So we basically say log this list here for me and the current state, right, of this list. And then we can just open our developer tools. You can do this with Control-Shift-I, or you can click here and then the programs, helping programs, Control-Shift-I is the best one, and then tools for developers. This is now in Dutch, but okay, so you should find tools for developers. And then you can go to console. So when I'm clicking now, let's say test. Click the button. Okay, I have a list here with test. Oh, there's 3. This is already 5 tests. And add a little bit more. It's working. That's great. So we have an entire array with like 5 times test and then some random digits. That's great. So all we want to do now is we want to represent this array over here. Okay, let's just give it a shot. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to use only one li element. And then we're going to say v4 each input data, or let's say element, in input data array, show me this input data. So basically, here we go. So we say element, show me this element. Let's see if that is already working. There is still a problem. It needs a key. The key is basically to identify that it's a unique item. So I'm just going to give the key the element itself. This is not really good practice, but for now, then we don't need to convert it to an object and stuff like this. So for now, just do it, make this key element. And then we can try it. So we can basically add some items here. So I say test1, click the button. Oh, test1 is there. Test2, click the button. Test2 is there. Test3, and so on and so on. And I can add as many as I like. Here we go, here we go. There is no end. It gives me some warnings here. These are duplicate keys. That's because we're using this element as a key, and a key needs to be unique. But don't worry about this. The point is that it's basically working, and This is how easy it is to use Vue.js. So v-for is basically going to loop through each element in the array and give me this as its list item. And every time I click the button, I'm executing this function, which adds it to the array. And that's it. That's how amazingly easy it is to use Vue.js. And of course, this is just so you guys would get a taste from it. The next video, we're gonna really make an entire application using Vue.js. We're gonna use login functionality. We're gonna fetch our backend, which we're gonna develop ourselves as well. And then we're gonna move forward building our application and learning Vue.js. So this little tool here that we built today already shows the power of Vue.js. I basically wrote, I don't know how many lines of code, 2, maybe 3, 5 lines of code, and I already can register all these items in this list. That's how easy it is to use it. So basically, if this was still abstract to you today, I will explain everything in the following videos. So following videos, we're going to look into how to build the application, what are good practices to build a Vue.js application, how do we fetch data from an array, and so on and so on. I hope you guys like this. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll be back with a video in a couple of days. See you guys then. Bye bye.